Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Software Sustainability Institute Fellowship Program launch webinar. Just give me 2 seconds to make sure I'm all set up here. Looks like my volume's great. Thank you so much. Just a heads up, we have Mario and Schwabe in the chat. So if you have any issues or anything, they will ping me any questions or let me know if there are any technical glitches. Awesome. Excellent. So welcome again. This is the Software Sustainability Institute's Fellowship Program 2021 launch webinar. My name is Rachel Ainsworth. I'll be your host today. I am the community manager at SSI, and I'm the face you'll see with regards to the fellowship program most of the time, and the one who will be answering all of your emails and questions. Just some practicalities for today. If you experience any problems, please just put a note in the chat and we will do our best to help. Just a note that there is a small lag between the Zoom webinar and the YouTube live stream. So if there are issues, it might take a few seconds for me to get that sorted out for you while people relay the message to me. Please feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we have a dedicated Q&A session at the end where those will get answered. This webinar is being recorded and the video will be made available on our YouTube channel immediately afterwards, and we will make sure that we have appropriate captions after the event. You can connect with us on Twitter at SoftwareSaved. So just a quick agenda. I will start by introducing the Software Sustainability Institute, and then I'll tell you a lot more about the fellowship program and the application process. We'll then hear from 2 of our fellows, Rekha and Yo, who will tell you about their personal experiences of the fellowship program. And then at the end, we will do our best to answer any questions that you may have, and then we'll wrap up at 4. So to start, I'll briefly introduce the Software Sustainability Institute. So the SSI, for short, is a national facility in the UK promoting the advancement of software in research since 2010 by cultivating better, more sustainable research software to enable world-class research. And this is more succinctly put in our motto, which is better software, better research. The Institute is a collaboration between the universities of Edinburgh, Manchester, Oxford, and Southampton, and we are very proudly supported by all 7 UK research councils. We are comprised of 5 teams. We have a software team, which helps the community to develop software that meets the needs of reliable, reproducible, and reusable research. We have a policy and research team, which collects evidence on and promotes the place of software in research and shares this information with stakeholders. We have a training team, which delivers essential software skills to researchers and partners with institutions, doctoral schools, and the community. We have a community team, which develops communities of practice by supporting the right people to understand and address topical issues, and that's where the fellowship program lies. And then we have a communications and outreach team, which exploits our platform to enable engagement, delivery, and uptake. The team is involved in lots of different activities. Some are listed here on this slide. I'll talk briefly about what the community team does. We have almost 150 fellows currently, and we have organized over 30 workshops, including 12 collaborations workshops, which I will talk about at the end of my presentation. So what's so important about the SSI? Well, the UK research community relies on software, and this is very clearly evidenced by a survey that the SSI conducted in 2014, where about 406 researchers responded to a survey, which they replied overwhelmingly that they use research software, and a majority said that their research would not be possible without software. So better software, better research is very important, and that is what the SSI is working to do. So now I'll talk about the fellowship program. Why do we have a fellowship program? Well, it's a really great way to engage with natural ambassadors of better software practice from the research community. So the promotion of better and more sustainable software is best done by those already within the domains. We are able to support those involved with improving software practice and helping them form communities of practice. In return, fellows help the Institute discover important information about software in different research domains, and they help guide our training, policies, community work, and consultancy engagements. So who are we looking for? Applications are very welcome from all research domains and career stages. So whether you're in a junior position, such as a PhD candidate or junior research software engineer, or an established or experienced position, such as professor or director, we would love to receive your application. Here's a breakdown of some of the demographics from previous years. We have a nice spread across gender, and we always want to encourage those from gender minorities to apply. And we have a wide spread of people from various career stages as well. And we would like to encourage more senior roles to apply as well, because you have a lot of influence when it comes to policies and getting these better research practices enacted in your domains and institutions. So what else are we looking for? We're looking for people who are supported by the UK research councils, because that's where our funding comes from. Those are all listed there on the slide, but other funders are very welcome. You do not have to be funded by UKRI. You could be funded by other places like Wellcome, JISC, or an EU project. However, you must be based in the UK or have a formal affiliation with a UK-based institution or office, and that's because the SSI funding comes from UK research councils. If you are currently not based in the UK, do please contact us in advance if you would like to check your eligibility to apply. We're happy to have that discussion with you. However, your fellowship plans must be primarily focused on improving UK capacity and capability. So to apply, you should be one or more of the following, and just bear with me while I read this list. You could be a researcher who uses software. You could be a developer who writes tools for researchers. You could be a research software engineer who supports the work of researchers with software. You could be an advocate for best practice in software use for your research domain. You could be in a leadership role in projects or organizations that make heavy use of software. You could be a user of research software, or you could just be passionate about software in research in any way. So you can identify with any of those. But in summary, we are looking for champions of improved software practice in the various domains and institutions. We're looking for effective collaborators, so you should enjoy working with others and be good at promoting your work to a wide audience, such as through outreach, blogging, tweeting, etc. We do look at your contributions in your communities, such as software, papers, presentations, data sets, and so on. We look at whether you can communicate your ideas beyond your specialization. And something for you to consider when you're applying is, do you have time to engage? So the program requires of order 10 days in the year of being involved in win-win activities, that is, activities that benefit you and activities that benefit the Institute. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit. And then finally, some other things that you could be involved with but are not mandatory is that you could be an advocate of open and reproducible research. You could be involved in communities of practice, either as a member, a founder, or a contributor. Some examples of communities of practice include communities such as Mozilla Open Leaders, our OpenSci, or the Turing Way. And then you could optionally collaborate with or take on an existing fellow's work. So are you a natural successor to an existing project, or do you already collaborate with any of our existing fellows? You can check out their profiles on our website. So some of the things that we expect from fellows. In the junior career stages, you should have the time and inclination to contribute to the community, to engage with your research or domain or institution, attend and organize events, share experiences, insights, and outputs from event participation, use your platform as a fellow to promote better software practice in research, align with and promote the Institute and its mission, and attend any required events. Again, I'll touch more on those required events in a little bit. The things that we're looking for from early or mid-career stage applicants is if you help seed or nurture a community of practice in a research software related area. if you run workshops to promote software training or best practice in your domain or institution, or if you work with other fellows on this. Optionally, if you contribute to policy, you could give a talk on behalf of the Institute, or you could undertake carpentries instructor training. And this would all be in addition to what we expect of fellows who are in junior career stages. In addition to all that, what we might expect from fellows in more senior career stages is that you might organize and share networking events to help create policy on Institute priorities, such as better software, more recognition of software development and developers in research, and software in the reproducible research agenda. Promote the Institute mission to research leaders in your institutions, research councils, and government. Possible attendance at Institute advisory board meetings, and co-review outputs from mid-career fellows. However, we are also open to any other suggestions fellows have for activities. If none of those activities resonate with you, do please get in touch, and we are very happy to discuss your ideas as well. We're very interested to hear those. But our promise to you is that we will listen, we will be responsive, we will work with you as one of the team, we will support you in your work and ideas as a fellow, we will be fair and flexible where possible, and we will help you to develop your community development skills. So what are some of the benefits of being an Institute Fellow? You'll receive a £3,000 event fund. You can raise your profile and have your opinion heard. You can organize and attend events. You can present your work. There are opportunities to gain teaching experience and training. There are publishing opportunities, both formal and informal, such as through our website. You can join a dynamic network of fellows, and I think this is a really big one, as the community is really supportive and engaging. You can gain higher visibility within your institution, which can lead to potential new collaborations. You can be considered a thought leader in your area. And of course, we offer a platform to influence research software policy. So what are some of the requirements? If offered a fellowship, you will have to agree to the 2021 terms and conditions document, which you will be sent. You are expected to write a blog post for each supported activity, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. You're expected to attend the fellowship program inaugural meeting, and this is an opportunity to meet Institute staff and the other fellows within your cohort. This will be online, don't worry. You're expected to take part in a midterm review so that we can see how you're doing with your fellowship and see where we can offer you more support. You can attend collaborations workshop, which I'll talk more about in a second. You can attend SSI Fellows community calls when you're able. You can attend an open fellows meeting when we're able to offer those. And you can take part in a survey on your participation in the fellowship program, and this will help us improve the program in future years. So coming back to the requirement about the blog posts for supported activities, once fellows have used their funds to attend a conference or run a workshop or any other activities, they're expected to write a blog post. And this is because the blog posts not only report your activity and what you've done, but it also allows you to disseminate that information to the wider community. And also point towards other resources. They are also the main output that is read by those who visit the Institute website, and we get over 20,000 visitors a month. You're also very welcome to contribute any other blog posts in addition to this, such as about your expertise or any advice. And blog posts also encourage outreach skills development. So the timeline for the 2021 program, applications do close on Friday, the 5th of February. In the first week of March, we will be in touch with those who are shortlisted. The 11th of March is something called the online selection day, and this is a full day interview process, which will allow us to finalize the selection of fellows. So candidates should be available from around 10 to 5 that day. But if you are unable to make that due to a clash, don't let that put you off your application. If enough people cannot attend that day, we can arrange an alternative date. But that is just the one that is in the calendar. So if you can make the 11th of March, that is preferred. At the end of March, so the 30th of March through the 1st of April, is Collaborations Workshop 2021. And shortlisted candidates will receive free registration, and you are allowed to attend that. There's also financial assistance available for anybody who needs financial assistance in order to participate in Collaborations Workshop, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. In April, at the start, we will make the formal offers of the fellowship to successful candidates, and then we will make the announcement, the official announcement of our 2021 fellows at the end of April, and you can officially start your activities in May of 2021. So we'll move on to the application process. The application form can be found at this link. It's also linked from our website. But the main part of the application is voiceover of a slide presentation screencast. So basically, you will make a slide presentation, record yourself speaking over it, and that will be the bulk of your application. And it's what we will mostly review you based on. So you'll be measured on your presentation style, your content, but more importantly, your plans for the fellowship. So keeping to time is quite important. It's for 6 minutes maximum. And this is so that we don't overburden any of the reviewers. Below, we have a suggested format, such as spending 1 minute on describing who you are professionally, spending 1 minute on what you do, and spending the bulk of the video on your plans for the fellowship. This might look a little different than in previous years. We find that it would be more helpful for reviewers to judge your application if you spend a little bit more time on your plans for the fellowship. But there are examples of application screencasts linked on the website, and I will also point you to them in later slides. So some examples of previous fellows activities includes workshops organized by the fellows. So there's an Ally Skills workshop organized by our fellows Malvika and Yo. We've had workshops on efficient and beautiful data visualization by Gergana. Fellow Anna has organized many repro hacks, so reproducibility hackathons. Fellow Andrew Stewart has conducted reproducible data visualizations using R in the binder. And Rekha has organized a Northwest University's R Day. So these are just some examples of workshops. There's also been several workshops that have been inspired by the carpentries, such as library carpentry and various software and data carpentry workshops as well. We do have some considerations in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. We do encourage applicants to consider that travel and in-person events might not always be feasible, and we particularly welcome plans with online-based activities, such as organizing or attending online workshops, attending virtual conferences, or the use of software and some hardware to enhance online events and activities. And you can read more about how our current cohort of fellows have adapted their plans to make the most of their fellowships in the COVID-19 world on the Institute blog. I do want to note, however, that the fellowship does not support paying for hardware such as laptops or computers, or for staff time for developing software. The fellowship is primarily focused on supporting you at, for, and leaving events. For example, bringing people together to talk about the best way to integrate different codes as a workshop is within scope, but paying for staff time to design is not. So if you have any questions at all about your specific plans for the fellowship, that you're not sure if they would be eligible, feel free to send us an email at fellows-management@software.ac.uk, and we can discuss any specifics with you. So some of those required events for fellows that I mentioned before include the fellows inaugural meeting. So new fellows will be expected to attend, and this is likely to take place in May or June of 2021, so early this summer. And this is where you will be introduced to the Institute, staff, and our themes. It's a really great opportunity to network with the other fellows in your cohort, and you can read more about the last inaugural meeting at this link here. Collaborations Workshop is the premier annual unconference event run by the Institute, which brings together the entire research software community in order to explore best practices and the future of research software. So Collaborations Workshop 2021 will take place from Tuesday, the 30th of March to Thursday, the 1st of April, and it will be online. The themes of the keynotes, discussion groups, mini workshops, hackathon, and more are fair research software, diversity and inclusion, and software sustainability. And just a reminder, all shortlisted candidates will be given a free registration ticket. And if anybody else is interested in attending who can't afford the registration fee, we do have financial assistance available, and the application forms are on the website. Finally, there's also the continuing fellowship. So once you become an SSI fellow, you're always an Institute fellow, unless you want to back out for other reasons. But the benefits of this include that there's a communal pot for attending or organizing events. So once you're beyond your initial inaugural year as a fellow, you still have access to some funding. We'll ask you for your opinions. There's plenty of opportunities to network with the fellows community, and your influence will continue, such as there will be opportunities for you to act as a reviewer or help us to recruit fellows for the next cohort. So here are a lot of links related to the program. So there's more information about the program on our website, where the application form is also linked. We have a short FAQ there. You can see an example terms and conditions document from 2020 linked here. We have a playlist on YouTube with some examples of 2020 successful applications, and then you can connect with us on social media. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn. And then you can email me at fellows-management@software.ac.uk if you have any specific questions. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to some of our fellows to hear about their experiences firsthand. So first up, I'd like to introduce Rebecca.
Thanks, Rachel. Hello, everyone watching this. Okay, so I'll just introduce myself and answer some questions that Rachel has put to us to discuss. So my name is Rika Shoimashi. I am a lecturer in quantitative methods at the University of Manchester. I'm based in the Department of Criminology in the School of Social Sciences. So it might not be your first thought when you think of software sustainability in terms of domain, but that was definitely part of what attracted me to apply for Software Sustainability Institute and for the fellowship in the first place. So that is one of the first questions. So what attracted me to apply for this program? And the first thing is the community of the SSI. It is a group of incredibly helpful, interesting, talented, and motivated people across a very, very wide range of disciplines. I think mostly in academia, but also people who are not in academia as well, but involved in research and in other capacities. And for me, working with sort of research software, where I was coming from, I built a data collection tool. So I built an app for my PhD. And as a social scientist, lots of people that said, okay, that's nice, that's one piece of, or that's a tool for your research, but actually, your contribution in social sciences doesn't usually involve something like that. So it's really hard to get sort of recognition and understanding of how much work that is, and also how important it is to get that software part right, to make it sustainable, to make it something that is follows good practice, that is open, these sorts of things. So it's really nice to all of a sudden find a community where this was emphasized, but it wasn't specific to a particular domain, so that I could bring my specialist experience and then find similar people working with similar things in completely different domains. And the other thing that attracted me was the ethos. So this drive for sustainable, open research and practices was something that I had heard about, but the extent to which the SSI embodies and supports that was something that I found really attractive in this. And finally, I did have a set of sort of solid ideas and plans that I wanted to accomplish, but I didn't really know where I would find support for it. And so the SSI provided a really good opportunity for that. As a bit of background, I ran the University of Manchester R user group, And I also held all sorts of workshops around sort of sustainable data practices, I guess, for criminology audiences, but also for policing and crime analysis practitioners. And I thought that this would be a good opportunity to get the support for that. So that brings me on to what were my fellowship plans and goals. And basically all of these activities that I was doing, they align with this idea of promoting sustainable software, data, research practices in social science, and also in sort of policing, crime analysis, and these sorts of areas. And so my plans were to have a series of activities that support this kind of idea, I guess. Um, so when I applied, I said I had set out a set of plans and things that I wanted to do, and laid out how both the funding and also the support from the SSI might help me support these events and bring together people across these different domains and abilities who maybe are not usually exposed to ideas of sustainable software research practices, and incorporate that within my domain. So what kind of commitment did being a fellow, and does being a fellow, entail? And I think maybe Rachel emphasized this point as well, is it can really be as much as you like. So there are some, of course, requirements. So things like the blog post, for example. And initially I was a bit worried. I was like, oh, I don't know how to write a technical blog post. What does that mean? But actually I found that a really, really helpful exercise to help me reflect on what I'm doing, how that aligns with my goals, how that aligns with sort of SSI goals, that sort of thing. And then so those they ended up being fun, not a box ticking exercise. And I still continue to blog about things, so that's very helpful. And yeah, you can give as much, I think, as you would like. And the one thing that I find super, super helpful is things like going to the collaborations workshop, because it's so different than my usual sort of professional conferences or these things that I would go to, and that I find it really exciting to get exposed to different ideas and to find that kind of support for the open and sustainable practices across all these different domains, and get ideas, and also meet really cool people who are just interested in these things that I'm interested in. So what benefits have I experienced? Definitely being part of this community, even after my fellowship year ended, just being able to have a group of people to reach out to if I have relevant questions or comments, or just late last year, I ran an online hackathon, and I was wondering if there were people available to participate in certain things. And I knew that I could just email sort of the SSI team, and there were people who responded, and that's really nice to maintain being part of this community. And also getting some inspiration, so getting outside of my sort of day-to-day research environment and looking at what people across other fields are doing, I have found super beneficial for me, both professionally and just generally being a happy researcher. In terms of life after the fellowship and how fellowship impacted me, like I said, keeping in touch has been really fantastic, and having this network of people with these shared goals to reach out to, and to also be kept in the loop with what developments are happening, has really enriched my research and my understanding of research practices in general. In terms of what advice I would give to potential applicants, what I would say is try and pick something that you're passionate about, which aligns with the goals of the SSI. So have a look at I guess the about page and the intent behind the SSI, and what kind of things they're doing, and think about your own world, what sort of projects you're passionate about, what kind of things you would like to do if there was this support, and how do these two align. And if you have this kind of clear plan of how this fellowship might support those activities and might support those interests that you have, then present that. And I think that would be my main advice. Of course, you could be ready for that to change. One of the things that Rachel mentioned as an example project was the Northwest University's R Day, which I hosted in collaboration with some colleagues from MMU. And that was not in my original fellowship plan, but it was by far the best event that I had put on. So once you meet your fellow fellows and get some ideas, you will build more on your plans. So they will change a little bit, but having an initial clear objective and understanding was super helpful for me. And just see what other people get up to, think about how your work aligns with them. If there's anything else I would want to highlight, I would say from my personal experience, initially, I didn't think that I would be a good fit, possibly, but based on my sort of different background. But actually, now that I've joined, I found actually yes, and this is really fantastic. And I think I've gained a lot from coming from a different background than what I expected would be an SSI fellow. So if you're unsure, I would suggest to apply.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can't reiterate that enough as well. I think that's a really good point about not necessarily identifying with as maybe a potential SSI fellow, because I came from the same. I didn't think I, developed software well enough, but no, it's a really great community with lots and lots of different backgrounds. So we love to see a variety of different applicants. Awesome. Yo, you're next.
Hello, folks. I am going to try sharing my screen. That's like sharing my screen, only slightly more frightening. And get some Chrome on desktop one. Yes, that looks right. Share. Okay, and if I put it in present mode, can you all see that? I have a thumbs up. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, hey everyone. So my name is Yo. I'm an SSI fellow. And I have two major roles at the moment. One is that I work at the Wellcome Trust as an open source technology lead in the Data for Science and Health team. It's a very painfully long title. And I'm co-founder of Open Life Science. I will actually talk a bit about both of these later on, so I won't dig into it too much right now. But if you want to contact me at any point, my contact details are at the bottom, and the bit.ly link at the bottom is also for if you want to get any of the links or look at the slides. So, gone too far. Right, so my fellowship year was 2018, and I found out that I was accepted in very late 2017. And I'll talk a little bit about what happened during my fellowship year and what motivated me, but then I'll also talk a bit about what happened after that initial year as well, because Rachel sort of mentioned that once a fellow, always a fellow, and it really does make a big difference. So when I initially applied, I was a research software engineer. I wrote code on an open source research software grant, and I really loved it. I found out that open source was, in fact, just as awesome as I thought before I worked in open source. And I really wanted to advocate open source software in science in general and in research, and not just like my really specific domain. But quite reasonably, I was paid to work on a specific grant, and I couldn't just do general open source advocacy because that wasn't my job. So seeing the SSI as an opportunity to actually help me boost my in quote side interest that was sort of tangentially related to my job was the reason that I applied. And so I was super, super, super happy to actually find out that I was accepted. And I think the benefits that I'm citing here are very similar to what Rekha said as well. So networking, I've met so many fellows that are good friends and are collaborators, not only from my year, but also from previous years and from later years. Because there's something really special about having people who care about the same things you do, and you don't have to establish that premise. You can just discuss how do we make it better. And a lot of those people can become collaborators. So at the collaborations workshop in 2018, I co-authored a manifesto. I didn't think that was something I was ever going to be doing in my life, but it basically just asserts that science needs software, and that software should be a credited and examinable peer-reviewed part of research. And I think that's really important, but it's not something that's traditionally done. So actually just writing that down so that people could sign it. And if you visit these slides and then click on that link, you can go and sign it now if you wish. That was really fulfilling, actually just moving forward in a grassroots way, my ambitions to make sure that scientific code is better appreciated. Another benefit was I collaborated for about 2 years with another fellow on curating the open source toolkit for the journal PLOS, where we actually highlighted good quality open source software papers. And the money was pretty good too. I mean, it's £3,000. It doesn't go, it's not going to hire you someone for half a year or anything like that. But when these were my side projects, things like traveling somewhere or paying for posters or buying swag as thank you for an open source contributor, or indeed catering for Open Data Day, which absolutely was not in my fellowship plan, but was supported by the SSI. These things, they're really helpful. And I think it would be unfair to perhaps not also mention that I was exhausted. So I took on a lot, which I think is perhaps something that many fellows do by the time they're interested in being a fellow or as a process of becoming a fellow, is I definitely took on too much. That I think that's when you kind of have to learn the hard way sometimes. But then after my initial fellowship year, a lot of other stuff happened as well. So I'd been working in academia on and off since 2013, before I even completed my bachelor's, which I did through the Open University. And so I did complete my bachelor's, and I sort of realized that there wasn't much likelihood of me getting all that far in academia without a postgraduate degree. So my connections amongst the fellows have actually found me an EngD supervisor, which is like a PhD, but it starts with Eng. It is basically a doctoral degree with a slightly different focus of little projects. But basically that's been a lifelong dream of mine, just about, and that was something that I managed to hopefully achieve. I'm 2 years in, we'll see. Ask me again in a year or two and we'll see. And then hopping on to the pink box on the side, I accidentally found a new job last year. I wasn't looking, but a really exciting job vacancy came up. So I sort of mentioned that I love open source and that I've been doing grassroots stuff around this in science. And I saw this job vacancy talking about a funder that was looking to advocate open source and good quality reproducible software. And it's like, okay, there's no way I could get this, but I'll just submit my application anyway. And so I'm nearly 6 months into this job now. I've never been to the office yet because pandemic, but I'm positive that without my fellowship activities, I wouldn't have had the credit. I wouldn't have looked like a good profile, but because I did do my fellowship activities, I think that was a big part of me getting this job that I love to pieces. And then finally, the last thing I sort of wanted to highlight was the middle box, which I haven't talked about yet. So I co-founded an organization alongside with 2 collaborators. That is Mavika Sharan, who is also an SSI fellow, and Berenice Batu, who's based in Germany. And this is looking at not only open source and science, but open science in general. And actually what we did is we have a 16-week open science training and mentoring program. So people who have some interest in open science, they might already be practitioners, but who want to learn more and work on a specific project, they participate in this program. And they hear from expert speakers about different aspects of things like community building, project management, disseminating your open science, various different open science methods. And you can learn more about that at openlifesci.org. You don't want to listen to me talk about that for too long. But it has been massively impactful, not only in my own life, but I think in other people's lives as well. So right now we are in our 3rd round of this. We have funding for a 4th round as well, so there will be a 4th one later this year. And we have about 170 people who have participated in one way or another so far. So that could be that you were a mentee, where you were leading a project and learning about open science and implementing it. It could be that you were a mentor of one of the people who's participating, or perhaps you were an expert speaker who shared your expertise, something to do with open science or some other research related domain. And this was also a grassroots thing. And so we're all volunteers, all of our members, and this is something we do outside of our day job. And so to some degree, we could do things on our own. So for example, Zoom, at first we were begging and borrowing and not stealing Zoom rooms to do our calls together. I think at some points, poor Rachel was actually signing in and then giving us host rights and then going away like every other week. And it was hard work. And so really we recognize that we need to pay for our own Zoom. But when this is a side project, that comes from your own pocket. So having the SSI actually be able to give us money just to support small things like Zoom, or Otto.ai, which gives us transcription for our calls so that everyone can participate easily, or even things like the Easy Chair, which we use for application review. And we have mentorship training for our mentors, so they feel really confident in what they're doing when they are working with their mentees. And that actually adds up to quite a lot. So having the SSI give us ongoing support, even after my initial fellowship year, it made a difference. Some of this we probably would have paid for from our pockets on our own. Other stuff just wouldn't have happened without the SSI. So for us, it was a really big difference that the SSI made. And also, there's a lot of announcements and stuff that the SSI can amplify your network to other people. So it's been incredibly useful. And this is the 170 plus people that we have who are participating. And some of these are experts, some are mentors, some are mentees. Some of them are 1 or 2 or all 3 of those, because people will return after round 1 as a mentor if they're a mentee in the later rounds quite often. And this is a lot of people that we've made a difference in thanks to the SSI. So huge shout out. And so finally, really quickly, I'll wrap up and say some of the tips and lessons learned. These are sort of repeating something I mentioned earlier, but a lot will happen. You cannot do it all, and do not try it. Whether or not you get this fellowship, remember this. And off-board stuff, just don't keep on like taking stuff on. You have to put stuff down if you want to have a healthy life. Collaborate. So your networks from being a fellow will help take weight off when you are doing these amazing things. So long as it's someone you get on with. I don't think multi-person projects with someone you don't get on with, they're counterproductive. But finally, the last thing, I remember at 1:45 on the deadline of the fellowship application, I was like waiting for my video to render. I'd recorded it, it was done, and it was just like the thing was rotating on the screen. There is no more stress than not knowing whether or not the application is going to happen in time. Do not leave it to the last minute when you record your video, because it takes longer than you think, and it is terrifying. I'm sorry, this is not intended to be a scary note. This is intended to be an empowering note. Do it the night before, not the last day, is all I'm saying. And also huge thanks to the SSI, because it's awesome. I'm done. If I can unshare. There we go.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Yo. Very much appreciated. I think you wrote it in a blog post, your advice about not waiting till the last minute to render your video. And I remember reading that as an applicant, being like, oh yeah, okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, both to Yo and Rekka, for sharing their experiences. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Amazing. Yes, thank you both again. That was hugely valuable. If you want to hear or read about any more fellowship experiences, we have a YouTube playlist with our SSI Fellows community calls, where during each of the community calls, a couple of the fellows give an update about, about their fellowship plans or life after their fellowship. So there are more opportunities to hear from fellows there. We have some blog posts. There's one by Emily Bell about being a digital humanist in 2020. We have a current fellows experience of the SSI fellowship written by Andrew Stewart. And then we also have Malvika's fellowship experience linked there as some slides where she presented during one of the community calls about how she adapted her plans and spent her funds during COVID-19. And then finally, we have a research article entitled Raising the Status of Software in Research, a survey-based evaluation of the Software Sustainability Institute Fellowship Program, where you can read more and get some snippets of how the fellowships found the program, of how the fellows found the program. Right, so now we're going to move over to audience Q&A. So if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and start answering some of the ones that I've seen, as well as some that I received by email. I'll keep everything anonymized, don't worry, but I think they're very good questions that other people may have as well. So some of the questions that came up in the chat today is about any clashes with any of the required events, such as the inaugural meeting and collaborations workshop. Just to emphasize that when we say required, you should just do your best to be able to attend. Life comes up. If there are clashes or if things happen like a pandemic, then it's not super mandatory that you attend, but these are things that we that we encourage the fellows to be as involved with as possible, and are really great networking and collaboration opportunities. So the inaugural meeting will be determined by a doodle poll, for example. So we'll poll all of the successful fellows to make sure that there's a date where as many people can get together as possible. It's not required that you attend Collaborations Workshop 2021, even if you are shortlisted. You just have the opportunity to attend it if you would like. But it'll be the one after that that you're more strongly encouraged to attend in 2022. One of the questions in the chat was, can you buy hardware to help run an online event, such as a good camera or microphone? And the answer is yes. This is the type of hardware that we can support with the fellowship. So big things like laptops and computers, we cannot support. These are things that we expect your host institution to support you with, but we can support you with these other things that will enhance your online activities that are aligned with your fellowship goals. So a few other questions I received by email, a lot of questions about eligibility of your affiliation or association. So our requirement is that you must be based in the UK or have a formal affiliation with a UK-based institution or office. And just to kind of expand on that and clarify some of that, this affiliation is required at the time of application. So for example, if you are a UK-based PhD student and your program ends during the fellowship period, you're still eligible to apply even if your plans for after the PhD have not yet been finalized. We do understand that academic contracts can be short and changes are happening all the time. So it's your affiliation at time of application that's important here. The affiliation does not have to exclusively be with academia. You can be affiliated with any UK-based organization or institution, such as the civil service. The important thing is that you just have time to carry out your fellowship plans and engage with the community and attend required events. So that's the only thing, is to make sure that you have that time available to carry out your fellowship activities. You do not need any formal approvals from your institution or university as part of your application. It's always good to have the support of, for example, your line manager, so that they know and they are okay with you taking time to carry out your fellowship activities, but you don't need anything as part of the application. If you are not currently based in the UK, feel free to contact us if you would like to check your eligibility. It is required that you do have a strong affiliation or some sort of formal affiliation with a UK-based institution. But if you have significant impact on UK research and software as part of your fellowship plans, do please send us an email and we can discuss this on a case-by-case basis before you spend your time on the application. We want to make sure that nobody's time is being wasted. So do feel free to contact us and we can discuss that with you. I had some questions about funding. So how would the successful applicants manage the funding? And the way that this is done is that if you are a fellow, you submit funding requests and expense claims directly to SSI. So we don't give your institution funds and then they delegate. You interact directly with SSI when it comes to the funds. And where there are special cases where things are paid for in advance by, for example, your host institution, this needs to be discussed and approved in advance. But all of this information will be given to you in more detail if you are successful. Does travel and accommodation for attending conferences, workshops, and collaboration with other experts relating to software count as eligible expenses? And in general, yes, this is all within scope of the fellowship program. However, in this day and age, we do caution that travel is not always going to be feasible, especially because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So we do suggest having contingency within your plans. And participating at in-person events is in no way mandatory during COVID. So I just want to clarify that. I think we've had a few more messages pop up. If part of our plans involved collaborating with other fellows, but we don't yet have that collaboration set up, what is the best way to indicate that in our application or indeed find collaborators? it's great to get in contact with the fellows that you want to work with in advance. You could indicate if there is a project that has been previously worked on in your application that you would be interested in continuing. But if you specifically want to collaborate with somebody, it would be best to get in touch with them prior to submitting your application. I think we have another question. As an RSC who works in a central RSC unit at a university, would I be eligible? I don't work in a specific domain and I'm mainly centrally funded, but do work on some UKRI projects. Yes, you're very much eligible to apply. There's a section on the application where it asks for example, research domain, and you can just select that you don't do research in that area, and that's perfectly acceptable. You still are eligible under the people that we're looking for. So let's see, who else? Is that it for the questions? I think that's all the questions that I see. I will hang on here for another 10 minutes in case any more questions pop up. But before I do that, I'll go ahead and finish my slides. I should have left this slide up there when I was doing that. Sorry about that. The application form is at this link here, and it's also linked on the webpage. But I just want to give a thank you to everybody who attended and asked questions and engaged, and especially thank you to our two fellows, Brooke and Yo, for sharing their experiences with us today. Thank you to the Institute team for the information on the slides, any photos, and for helping out, especially to Mario and Schwabe, who have been answering your questions in the chat. And of course, thank you to our funders, the UK Research Councils. The material, these slides are available on Zenodo. I've linked to them in the chat. They are licensed CC BY, so if for any reason anybody wants to reuse them, feel free. But this recording of the webinar will also be available on the YouTube channel immediately afterwards, and I'll be going back through in the coming week to make sure that all of the captions are appropriate. If you have any further questions about the fellowship or want to discuss your specific case, like if you have very specific questions, please do reach out. We don't want to discourage folks from applying. But you can email me at fellows-management@software.ac.uk. And I think before we close, I think there's been a few more questions. So thank you to everybody who attend, and I will hang on until 4 p.m. to answer any more questions. So let me go over to the chat. We have a question. It is clear that fellows have done some fantastic work. Does the SSI have any means in place to ensure the good work of the fellows doesn't go stale if a fellow can no longer continue a project they have started? That is all about sustainability, isn't it? That's a really great question. And as part of the fellowship program, we do encourage people to continue the projects that have been done. And we mentioned before that once a fellow, you're always a fellow. So we are here to support you throughout your career for as long as you want to stay engaged. We're here to support you as best as we can to keep these projects going. So yeah, we can offer training and connect you with other people to help you with the sustainability of your projects. So these are all things that we hope that you gain as a fellow. And especially by gaining into the fellows network, is that you have a really great pool of people to help you with these types of things. So that's a really great question, actually. Thank you for asking that. Does anybody else have any questions? Or let me know if I didn't quite answer that and I can clarify it a little bit better. I have a question. It can be difficult to define a specific career stage. How critical is it to get this right? That's an interesting question. I mean, you're not going to be disqualified if you put the wrong career stage. We can ask this of you again if you are successful. It helps us when reviewing your applications, is we are not going to judge, for example, or review a PhD student necessarily with the same expectations as we would a professor who was applying. So that's where it makes that difference. So, you know, if you're just starting out in your career, it's better to go, you know, junior career stage. If you're in the middle, then early to mid career is great. And then if you are kind of a more senior person in your institution, then that would be great to indicate, just to help with the review process. So to clarify the previous question before that, so with regard to the sustainability of some of the fellows projects, the context is that in an application, we might want to suggest new ideas and projects, but it might be just as useful to pick up on existing projects. If there's anything in particular that you want to discuss, do feel free to email me. We can discuss this on a case-by-case basis. We do very much like to encourage people to work on or continue a previous fellows project, and we do encourage collaboration, but we also want to support you with your ideas. So just like what Yo said and what Rekha said, you know, make sure that you're doing something that you're passionate about, because that will make all of the difference. Back to the career stage question. If the career stage is important to get right, how does the evaluation of proposals change between career stages? So it's basically the amount of experience you might have or expertise you might have in the area. So for example, we're looking for champions of good practice within the various domains. So if you're applying as, you know, from a more senior career stage, such as maybe a lecturer or even a professor, we would expect you to have, you know, already been championing good practice within your domain and provide evidence of that. Whereas if you're applying as a PhD candidate, maybe you haven't yet had opportunities to organize or run events, and this would be your opportunity to get the funding to carry out those goals that you might have. I hope that clarifies that for you. It's just so that when we're weighing up some of our reviews, we're not judging a PhD candidate necessarily with the same expectations as a professor. So I hope that clarifies that. Let me know if I can expand on that a bit more, or I can pass on to a colleague who might be able to answer a bit better. But again, feel free to email me directly at fellows-management at software.ac.uk if you want to discuss anything in particular. And I'll hang out here for about 3 more minutes to answer any final questions. Thank you everybody so much for attending. And yes, thank you to our speakers whose enthusiasm was great. And I just want to reiterate that. I am also a fellow. I became a fellow in 2019, and I enjoyed it so much that I applied to work for the Software Sustainability Institute. So I can only reemphasize what our fellows have previously said, and that it's a really wonderful community, and I really enjoy working with everybody and meeting such a wonderful network of people working to improve research in software. So thank you so much, everybody. I'll hang out here for 2 more minutes just in case. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for all your questions. And with that, I will end the webinar. Thank you so much again to everybody, and thank you to Shuaib and Mario for helping out in the chat, and thank you to Rekha and Yo for sharing their experiences. Have a great night, everybody. Feel free to email me if you have any more questions. Bye.